5 signs that the war between Russia and NATO is about to spiral out of control. Sadly, we have reached a stage where one wrong move could unleash death and destruction on a scale that most of us don't even want to imagine. This is by Michael Snyder on Collective Spark. Have you ever found yourself completely losing your temper in the middle of a heated struggle of some sort? Whether it's a hotly contested sporting event, an actual fist fight, or a bitter battle against an online foe, it can be way too easy to lose your temper, and when tempers flare, you can end up losing control and doing things that you deeply regret later. Unfortunately, the same thing is true on an international level. Russia and NATO have both become absolutely obsessed with winning in Ukraine, and leaders on both sides are getting angrier and angrier, and when leaders become extremely angry, they can do really stupid things. Of course, my comment is the ones that pay for it are the people. Now, he says, I have been extremely alarmed by some of the events that have transpired over the past week. Hotheads in Russia and hotheads in the Western world just continue to escalate the conflict in Ukraine, and we're getting dangerously close to a point of no return. And the 5 signs that the war between US and NATO is about to spiral out of control. Number 1, a dirty bomb. There had been a lot of chatter about the possibility that Russia could start using tactical nukes in Ukraine now that Russia is alleging that the Ukrainians are preparing to detonate a dirty bomb, quote unquote, in their own territory in order to motivate the Western powers to get even more involved in the conflict. Russia's defense chief on Sunday alleged that Ukraine was preparing a provocation involving a radioactive device, a stark claim that reflected soaring tensions as Moscow struggles to stem Ukrainian advances in the south and is building defense positions in anticipation of Ukrainian defensive elsewhere. Russia's defense minister Sergei Shoigu made the allegations in phone calls with his counterparts from Britain, France, and Turkey. He also spoke to U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin in their second call in 3 days, but a terse Russian readout of that call did not say whether the dirty bomb claim was also mentioned in their conversation. Number 2, the U.S. 101st Airborne Division gets deployed to Eastern Europe. The 101st Airborne Division is one of the most famous units in the history of the U.S. military, and I was quite stunned to learn that they had just been deployed to Europe for the first time in almost 80 years. The U.S. Army's 101st Airborne Division has been deployed to Europe for the first time in almost 80 years amid soaring tension between Russia and the American-led NATO military alliance. The light infantry unit, nicknamed the Screaming Eagles, is trained to deploy on any battlefield in the world within hours, ready to fight. For now, the Screaming Eagles are involved in exercises near the Ukrainian border, but CBS News is reporting that they are prepared to cross the border into Ukraine if that becomes necessary. The Screaming Eagles commanders told CBS News repeatedly that they are always ready to fight tonight, quote unquote, and while they're there to defend NATO territory if the fighting escalates or there's any attack on NATO, they are fully prepared to cross the border into Ukraine. Number 3, 1 million rounds of ammunition. The U.S. has never armed anyone like they are arming the Ukrainians. If you can believe it, we have already given Ukraine over 1 million rounds of howitzer ammunition since the beginning of the war. The U.S. has now provided Ukraine with over 1 million rounds of howitzer ammunition since it began shipping arms to the embattled nation to aid its fight against Russia, according to the latest figures from the Defense Department. That includes up to 903,000 standard 155mm howitzer rounds, as well as 3,000 M982 Excalibur guided rounds, 7,000 remote anti-armor mine systems, RAMs, projectiles, and 180,000 105mm howitzer shells. It appears that much more help will soon be on the way. Right now, a new aid package is being readied in Congress, which will give the Ukrainians another $50 billion in assistance. The new aid package, which most likely would be part of an omnibus spending bill, could be within the range of roughly $50 billion, congressional aides and a source close to Ukraine government said. Number 4, Iranian troops in Ukraine? Question mark. A lot of mercenaries from Western nations have been fighting alongside the Ukrainians for a long time, and now the US is alleging that Iranian troops have actually entered Ukraine and are, quote, directly engaged on the ground, end quote, in an effort to help the Russians. Iranian troops are directly engaged on the ground in Crimea supporting Russian drone attacks on Ukraine's infrastructure and civilian population, the White House said. The US government has confirmed that Russian attacks have employed unmanned aerial vehicles purchased from Tehran and attacks carried out against Ukrainian targets from bases on the peninsula that Russia annexed from Ukraine in 2014, National Security spokesman John Kirby said. This conflict in Ukraine is becoming more of a world war with each passing day. We know that the Russians have been using Iranian drones to strike targets all over Ukraine in recent days, and that should deeply trouble all of us. Speaking of Iran, I just learned that their military has been conducting large-scale military drills on its border with Azerbaijan. Iran's military is conducting large-scale military drills on border with Azerbaijan, including practicing crossings of the Aras River, which defines a large part of the border between the two states. The exercises, called Mighty Iran, began October 17. The exact location has not been specified, but Iranian media places them in between Iran's provinces of Ardabid and East Azerbaijan, the part of Iran across the Aras from Azerbaijan's Fuzuli region. One expert on open source intelligence, however, analyzed photos of the pontoon crossing and placed it across from Azerbaijan's exclave of Nakhchivan. The Iranians have been getting really aggressive lately, and I have a feeling that a direct conflict between Iran and Israel will begin sooner rather than later. Number 5, relentless bombing of power infrastructure. The Russians have decided to take off the gloves. They have started relentlessly bombing electrical infrastructure over Ukraine, and it happens to create a major humanitarian crisis because winter is rapidly approaching. Missiles and drones being used to rain down upon key civilian infrastructure targets, mainly power stations, as the weather gets cold and days get darker. It's believed Russia hopes by doing so they may be able to make Kiev lose hope and give up the defense on their homeland. Kirilo Timoshenko, a key advisor to President Volodymyr Zelensky, confirms there are now an estimated 1.5 billion people without power across Ukraine. Both sides just continue to escalate matters, and it's just a matter of time before someone pushes things a little bit too far. Even now, it's really difficult to see a peaceful way out of this mess. The Biden administration seems to be completely opposed to any peace talks with the Russians, and I believe it's a tragic mistake. If both sides just continue to get angrier, at some point someone is going to be really tempted to resort to nuclear weapons. And once that happens, our world will never be the same again. Unfortunately, our leaders don't seem to understand that we could literally be on the brink of a nuclear conflict. They are so determined to win, quote unquote, this current battle on the global chessboard that they can't even see the bigger picture. Sadly, we have reached a stage where one wrong move could unleash death and destruction on a scale that most of us don't even want to imagine. This is by Michael Schneider, and he says, my brand new book entitled 7-Year Apocalypse is now available on Amazon. In addition to my new book, I've written 5 others that are available on Amazon. Lost Prophecies of the Future of America, The Beginning of the End, Get Prepared Now, and Living a Life That Really Matters. By purchasing these books, you help to support the work that my wife and I are doing, and by giving it to others, you help to multiply the impact that we're having on people all over the globe. I've published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, Under the American Dream, and The Most Important News, and the articles that I publish on those sites are republished on dozens of other prominent websites all over the globe. I always freely and happily allow others to republish my articles on their own websites, but I also ask that they include this about the author section with each article. The material containing this article is for general information purposes only, and readers should consult licensed professionals before making any legal, business, financial, or health decisions. I encourage you to follow me on social media, Facebook and Twitter, and any way that you can share these articles with others is a great help. During these very challenging times, people will need hope more than ever before, and it's our goal to share the gospel of Jesus Christ with as many people as we possibly can. And this is by Michael Schneider on Collect with Spark. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.